The crescent pack had never looked more beautiful. Silver lanterns hung from ancient oak trees. Moonflowers lined the path leading to the sacred altar. Thousands of wolves filled the great clearing, their voices blending into a chorus of excitement beneath the full moon. Tonight was the annual moon ceremony, but this year it meant something more. After 7 years together, everyone believed Alpha Tristan Hale would finally complete the sacred bond with Iris Everhart and name her the official Luna of the Crescent Pack. Even the neighboring Alphas had traveled to witness it. Among them stood one man who drew more attention than anyone else, Lycan King Kaelor Draven. The ruler of the Lycan kingdom rarely left his own borders. His very presence reminded every werewolf that peace between their races remained fragile. He stood quietly near the royal platform, his expression unreadable. He had come to negotiate treaties. Instead, fate had prepared something entirely different. At the edge of the ceremonial path, Iris adjusted the simple white gown she had sewn herself. She wore no extravagant jewels, only one moonstone necklace. Tristan had placed it around her neck on the night he promised they would face every future together. "You'll be beautiful," her closest friend whispered. Iris smiled softly. "I only hope today gives the pack something to celebrate." That answer was so very Iris. Even now, she thought of others before herself. For 7 years, she had stood beside Tristan. When drought threatened the pack, she organized food for struggling families. When disputes divided neighboring clans, she negotiated peace before violence could begin. She spent endless nights caring for injured warriors returning from patrol. The elders often joked that Tristan ruled with strength while Iris ruled with kindness. Most believed they made the perfect pair. The High Elder stepped forward carrying the sacred moonstaff. "The moon goddess watches us tonight. May the destined bond be completed before her light." The crowd erupted into applause. Tristan walked toward the altar. Iris followed. Her heart raced with quiet happiness. She had waited a long time for this moment. The High Elder extended his hands. "Alpha Tristan, take your mate's hand." Silence settled over the clearing. Instead of reaching for Iris, Tristan turned away. His hand reached for another woman standing among the noble families. Lady Celeste Ravenshade, the daughter of one of the wealthiest Alpha bloodlines. A ripple of confusion spread through the crowd. Iris stared at him. "Tristan?" He never looked into her eyes. His voice echoed across the sacred grounds. "Our bond was convenient, but it was never destined." The words struck harder than any weapon. He placed Celeste's hand in his own. "My future belongs with someone who can strengthen this pack. The Crescent Pack needs powerful alliances. It needs a Luna from one of the great bloodlines." The noble families burst into applause. Several elders nodded in approval. Only the ordinary wolves remained silent. Many lowered their eyes, unable to watch. They knew who had rebuilt their homes after floods, who had comforted widows after border raids, who had treated every child, elder, and warrior without asking for anything in return. Iris reached slowly toward her neck. Her fingers unclasped the moonstone necklace Tristan had given her years ago. She walked forward until she stood before him. Without anger, without tears, she placed the necklace gently at his feet. "I won't beg to be chosen." Those were the only words she spoke. Then she turned and walked through the stunned crowd. No one stopped her. No one followed. Behind the royal platform, Kaelor's silver eyes never left the woman disappearing beneath the moonlight. His ancient wolf, silent for decades, suddenly stirred within him. One thought echoed through his soul. "She is no ordinary woman." The celebration continued long after Iris left. Music filled the clearing. Goblets were raised. The noble families congratulated Alpha Tristan and Lady Celeste on their new political alliance. Only one place remained untouched by the festivities: the Stone of Remembrance. At the edge of the village stood a circle of weathered stones, engraved with the names of wolves who had died protecting the Crescent Pack. Every moon ceremony ended with fresh flowers placed before the memorial. This year, no one came. No one except Iris. She carried a small basket filled with white lilies gathered along the forest path. One by one, she laid them beneath each stone. She whispered the names of warriors she had once treated. Some had survived for a time. Others had not. "I haven't forgotten you," she murmured. "The pack still stands because of your courage." A cool breeze stirred the flowers. Behind the trees, hidden by shadows, Kaelor watched in silence. His royal advisor, Lord Varric, frowned. "Your Majesty." Kaelor did not answer. Varric glanced towards Iris. She was publicly rejected only hours ago. Most people would be drowning in humiliation. Yet she's here honoring the dead. Kaelor folded his arms. Exactly. Varric looked confused. "I don't understand." The entire pack watched their alpha tonight. Kaelor's gaze never left Iris. "I was watching her." He watched the care with which she straightened each flower, the respect she showed those who could never thank her, the quiet strength that asked for no audience, no applause, no reward. When Iris finally stood, she brushed a stray tear from her cheek. It was the first sign that her heart had truly broken. Then she walked away alone. Before dawn, she packed the few belongings she owned: a satchel of herbs, a change of clothes, a worn journal filled with healing notes. There was nothing left to keep her in the Crescent Pack. She slipped through the gates while the village still slept. The forest was silent, except for birds greeting the sunrise. For the first time in years, she had no destination. Only the determination to keep moving. She never noticed the figures following her between the trees. 3 masked wolves. Their scent was carefully concealed. When the first arrow struck the ground beside her feet, Iris froze. Another flashed past her shoulder. The attackers burst from the undergrowth. Steel glinted beneath the morning light. One lunged with a curved blade. Before Iris could react, a deafening roar shook the forest. The largest silver wolf she had ever seen crashed into the attackers. Lycan guards emerged from every direction. The fight ended almost as quickly as it began. 2 assassins fell unconscious. The third tried to flee. Kaelor himself blocked the path. The assassin dropped his weapon. Within moments, he was pinned to the ground. Kaelor looked down at him. "Who sent you?" The man clenched his jaw. One of the Lycan guards tightened his grip. Finally, the assassin broke. "We weren't hired because she was rejected." Kaelor's expression hardened. "Then why?" The assassin's face turned pale. "She discovered something." "What?" His breathing became uneven. "She wasn't supposed to know." Kaelor exchanged a sharp glance with Varric. This attack had never been about a broken engagement. Someone wanted Iris dead before she could reveal a secret powerful enough to silence her forever. As Iris stared at the captured assassin, she realized her heartbreak had led her into something far more dangerous than losing the man she loved. It had made her the target of a conspiracy she did not yet understand. The assassin was taken to the Lycan command tent before sunrise. His wrists were bound with silver chains. His eyes darted nervously between the guards standing at every entrance. King Kaelor stood at the center of the tent. Iris remained near the doorway. She still struggled to understand why anyone would want her dead. Kaelor looked at the prisoner. "You said she discovered something." The assassin swallowed hard. "I don't know everything. Tell me what you do know." He hesitated. The order came from nobles inside the Crescent Pack. They said the woman had begun asking questions about old family records. Iris frowned. "My mother's journals." Every eye turned towards her. She slowly reached into her satchel and removed a worn leather notebook. "It belonged to my mother. I found it after she died. I thought it was only a collection of family stories." She opened it carefully. Between pages of pressed flowers and handwritten recipes were strange symbols she had never understood. There were maps, names, references to someone called the First Moon Queen. I assumed they were legends. Kaylor exchanged a glance with his advisor. They're not legends. Within hours, royal investigators arrived from the Lycan capital. Among them was the elderly historian Lady Selene Ashcroft, whose knowledge of ancient bloodlines was unmatched. She spent the morning comparing Iris's journal with centuries-old royal records. The tent remained silent as she turned the final page. Then she slowly looked up. Her hands trembled. "It cannot be." Kaylor stepped forward. "What have you found?" Lady Selene took a long breath. The first Moon Queen had one infant daughter. History says the child died during the War of Broken Crowns. She shook her head. History was wrong. She pointed towards the symbols inside the journal. These markings were used only by the royal bloodline. They were designed to hide the identities of surviving heirs. Iris stared in disbelief. "I don't understand." Lady Selene's voice softened. "Your family did not descend from servants. They descended from queens." The words settled over the room like thunder. "You carry the last surviving bloodline of the first Moon Queen, the rightful lineage believed extinct for centuries." Silence followed. Even the guards forgot to breathe. Kaylor's ancient wolf stirred once more. Not because of power, because destiny had revealed itself. Lady Selene continued. "If your identity became public, you would possess the strongest legal claim to unite the werewolf packs and the Lycan kingdom under one peaceful crown." Iris slowly sat down. "My entire life, I believed I was ordinary." "You were raised to believe that," Lady Selene replied. "For your protection." The captured assassin lowered his head. The nobles knew. Kaylor's silver eyes narrowed. They knew exactly who she was. The assassin nodded. They feared what would happen if the kingdoms united. So they convinced Alpha Tristan to reject her. They forged reports. They spread rumors. They made sure the political marriage happened before the truth could surface. At that very moment, back in the Crescent Pack, Tristan received a sealed report uncovered during the investigation into the attack. Inside were copies of intercepted letters. Letters Iris had written to him over the years. Letters he had never received. His hands shook as he realized the truth. He had not simply rejected the woman he loved. He had been manipulated into abandoning the future queen of two kingdoms. Far away, Kaylor looked at Iris with quiet determination. Whatever battles lay ahead, one promise had already taken root in his heart. No one would ever use her again. 3 days later, Iris stood before the towering gates of the Lycan capital. Black stone walls stretched toward the clouds. Silver banners bearing the crest of King Kaylor fluttered in the morning breeze. The city was unlike anything she had imagined. Werewolves and Lycans walked the same streets. Merchants traded without fear. Children laughed together in busy market squares. For the first time in generations, peace looked possible. Kaylor waited at the palace entrance. He wore a simple dark coat instead of ceremonial robes. "Iris Everhart," he said, with a respectful nod. "Welcome." She returned the gesture. "Thank you for receiving me." As they entered the palace, Kaylor led her not to a throne room, but to a quiet council chamber. A large round table occupied the center. Maps, reports, and law books covered its surface. "There is something I wish to ask," Kaylor said. "I would like you to serve as my royal advisor while we investigate the conspiracy." Iris looked at him carefully. "Why me?" "Because you see people before politics. And because I trust your judgment." She was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke with calm determination. "I have one condition." Kaylor folded his hands behind his back. "Name it." "I will never become another political bargain. I won't be displayed to strengthen alliances. I won't be pressured into decisions that aren't mine. If I stay, it will be because my voice matters." Kaylor met her gaze without hesitation. "You have my word. You will never be treated as property. You will never be expected to agree with me simply because I am king. If you believe I am wrong, I expect you to tell me." For the first time since the moon ceremony, Iris felt a small part of the weight on her heart begin to lift. The following weeks were filled with long meetings. The investigation uncovered hidden payments, forged records, secret correspondence between corrupt noble families. Every discovery revealed how deeply the conspiracy had spread. One afternoon, Kaelor proposed increasing taxes on border villages to strengthen the kingdom's defenses. The council immediately agreed, everyone except Iris. She quietly placed a map on the table. "If you raise taxes here," she said, pointing to the villages, "families will abandon their farms. Our food supply will suffer before our borders become stronger." Several advisors frowned. One muttered, "She doesn't understand military strategy." Kaelor looked at Iris. "What do you suggest instead?" She traced another route across the map. "Strengthen the old mountain passes. They're easier to defend. They protect the villages instead of burdening them." The room fell silent as the generals studied her proposal. After several minutes, the commander of the royal guard nodded. "She's right," Kaelor smiled. "Then we'll change the plan." Not one advisor dared argue. Later that evening, they stood together on the palace balcony overlooking the city. "I expected you to defend your original decision," Iris admitted. Kaelor rested his hands on the stone railing. "My duty isn't to prove I'm always right. It's to make the right decision. If someone helps me find it, I'd be a fool not to listen." Iris looked at him beneath the rising moon. Tristan had wanted obedience. Kaelor valued honesty. It was a difference she had never imagined could exist. As the lights of the capital shimmered below, she realized something unexpected. For the first time since her heart had been broken, she no longer felt invisible. Her voice was heard. Her judgment was trusted. And without either of them noticing, the foundation of something far stronger than attraction had quietly begun to grow. The truth reached Alpha Tristan Hale one piece at a time. First came the intercepted letters, then the forged council reports. Finally, the testimony of two disgraced nobles arrested by Lycan investigators. Every lie pointed in the same direction. For years, they had manipulated him. Whenever Iris questioned suspicious decisions, they claimed she was becoming ambitious. Whenever she suggested reforms, they insisted she wanted more influence. Whenever she wrote to Tristan during his diplomatic travels, her letters disappeared before they ever reached his hands. He sat alone inside his study, surrounded by unopened evidence. The moonstone necklace still rested where Iris had placed it on the day of the moon ceremony. He picked it up with trembling hands. "I failed you," he whispered. No one answered, because there was no one left to hear him. 3 days later, Tristan crossed into the Lycan kingdom under a flag of peace. He came without an army, without advisors, without the nobles who had once applauded every decision he made. He arrived as one man, carrying the weight of his own mistakes. When he entered the Lycan capital, he expected cold stares. Instead, he saw something that unsettled him even more. People smiled when they spoke Iris's name. Merchants praised her fairness. Guards greeted her with genuine respect. Children waved excitedly as she crossed the palace courtyard, carrying a basket of books for the Royal Academy. She had become part of the kingdom. Not because anyone had demanded it, because she had earned it. Their meeting took place in the palace gardens, beneath blooming silver trees. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. At last, Tristan broke the silence. "I know the truth." Iris looked at him quietly. "The nobles lied to me. They forged reports. They hid your letters. They made me believe you cared more about power than about us." She listened, without interrupting. "I was deceived," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I know." Her calm reply caught him by surprise. "You?" "No," she nodded. "I've seen the investigation." Hope flickered in his eyes. "Then you understand." "I understand that you were lied to." She paused before continuing. But every time you had to choose between trusting me and trusting people who praised you, you never chose me." The words struck harder than any accusation. Tristan lowered his head. He searched for an explanation, for an excuse. None came. "I should have listened," he admitted. "I should have asked you instead of believing others." A soft breeze stirred the branches above them. "I loved you," he said quietly. "I know, and I still." She gently raised a hand, stopping him. "What we had was real. I'll never pretend otherwise. But love cannot survive where trust is missing. You didn't lose me the day you rejected me. You lost me every time you doubted my voice." Tears filled Tristan's eyes. For the first time since becoming alpha, he understood that leadership was not only about strength. Sometimes, it was about believing the right person when everyone else demanded otherwise. Footsteps echoed across the garden path. Kaylor approached, carrying several council documents. He smiled warmly when he saw Iris. "I've been looking for you." She returned the smile without hesitation. "I was just finishing here." Tristan watched the exchange in silence. There was no grand display of affection, only quiet trust, the kind he had once been given and failed to protect. As Iris walked away beside Kaylor, Tristan remained beneath the silver trees, finally accepting the painful truth. The future he had always assumed would be waiting for him already belonged to someone else. The announcement spread across both kingdoms within hours. The Lycan king had called for a great moon bond ceremony. Not a coronation, not a political summit, a sacred union that had not been witnessed for nearly 3 centuries. Representatives from every werewolf pack accepted the invitation. Lycan elders traveled from the northern mountains. Kings, queens, alphas, generals, healers. The great hall of the Moon Temple filled until there was no empty seat. Among the guests stood Alpha Tristan Hale. He had not come to protest. He had not come to interrupt. He came because history was unfolding before his eyes, and he knew he had no right to look away. At the center of the hall stood the ancient moon altar. Its white stone had witnessed countless vows through the ages. Tonight, silver flames burned around its edge. The high priest raised his staff. "We gather beneath the moon goddess to witness a bond freely given. The old divisions between Lycan and werewolf end here." The great doors opened. Kaylor entered first. He wore a dark ceremonial cloak embroidered with silver thread. There was no crown upon his head, only the mark of the Lycan king upon his shoulder. A moment later, Iris stepped into the hall. She wore a flowing gown of ivory and silver. No heavy jewels, no symbols of rank, only quiet confidence. The hall fell completely silent. She walked until she stood before Kaylor. He looked into her eyes, not at the crowd, not at the nobles, only at her. Then, before every kingdom gathered there, he slowly lowered himself onto one knee. A wave of astonishment swept through the hall. No Lycan king had knelt during a moon bond ceremony in living memory. Kaylor spoke clearly. "Iris Everhart, I do not ask because kingdoms expect it. I do not ask because your bloodline gives you a claim to power. I ask because I have come to know your heart. You have challenged me when I was wrong. You have strengthened me when I was uncertain. You have reminded me that the strongest ruler is the one who still knows how to listen." He held out his hand. "In front of every kingdom gathered here, will you accept me as your mate? And my equal?" Tears filled Iris's eyes. For a heartbeat, the hall seemed to disappear. She remembered another ceremony, another altar, another man who had chosen someone else. This moment was different. There was no expectation, no pressure, only a choice. She smiled through her tears. "Yes, I will." Kaylor rose to his feet. Together they placed their hands upon the moon altar. Silver light burst from the ancient stone. It flowed around them like living moonlight. The high priest spoke the sacred words of the Lycan rite, as witnessed by the moon goddess. so witnessed by all kingdoms. The silver light wrapped gently around their joined hands. Slowly, matching crescent-shaped marks appeared upon both their wrists. The blessing was complete. A deep hush settled over the hall. Then, one by one, every ruler bowed. Lycan kings, werewolf alphas, royal elders. Even the proudest nobles lowered their heads before the newly bonded pair. Among them stood Tristan. He did not bow because he had been defeated. He bowed because, at last, he understood. The woman he had believed would always wait for him had freely chosen a man who never asked her to prove her worth. And in that sacred moment, beneath the blessing of the moon goddess, two kingdoms became one, not through conquest, but through a choice made in love, respect, and equality. The trials lasted 40 days. For the first time in generations, noble birth offered no protection from justice. The grand chamber of the United Tribunal stood open to the public. Werewolves and Lycans filled the galleries together. They came not to witness revenge. They came to witness accountability. One by one, the conspirators were brought before the judges. The intercepted letters were read aloud. The forged reports were displayed for every kingdom to see. Former advisors admitted they had manipulated Alpha Tristan for years, convincing him that Iris could never be trusted. Others confessed they had orchestrated the political match with Lady Celeste to ensure Iris would never discover her true heritage. When the verdicts were announced, no cheers echoed through the hall, only silence. The corrupt noble families lost their titles. Their lands were returned to the crown. Their wealth was used to rebuild villages damaged by years of corruption and neglect. Justice had been served without hatred. After the final trial, Kaelor and Iris walked through the palace gardens. Spring had painted every path with white blossoms. "It is over," Iris said softly. Kaelor smiled. "It is only the beginning." Several weeks later, the rulers of both kingdoms gathered inside the newly restored Hall of Unity. The ancient high throne stood beneath the great skylight. It had remained empty since the kingdoms signed their peace accord. The High Elder stepped forward. "King Kaelor, by ancient law, you may now offer the high throne to your queen." Every eye turned toward Iris. Kaelor approached her with quiet respect. "The throne is yours, if you wish it. It carries authority over both kingdoms." Iris looked at the magnificent seat. Its silver carvings reflected the sunlight pouring through the glass ceiling. Years earlier, she might have believed this was the greatest honor imaginable. Now she knew better. She turned back to Kaelor. "I'll rule beside you, never beneath you." A warm smile spread across his face. "I was hoping you would say that." Instead of leading her to the high throne, he walked to the center of the chamber. Workers removed the old seat entirely. In its place stood a large circular table. "There will be no ruler above the people," Kaelor announced. "There will be leaders among the people. Representatives from every werewolf pack and every Lycan province took their places around the table. Healers sat beside generals, village elders beside royal advisors. Every voice carried equal weight. The Hall of Unity erupted into applause. That evening, after the celebrations ended, Kaelor and Iris stood together on the palace balcony. The city below shimmered beneath the moon. "I have something to confess," Kaelor said. She looked at him curiously. "What is it?" "The day I first saw you, I admired your dignity. The day I rescued you, I respected your courage. The day you challenged me in council, I realized I never wanted to rule without you." He gently took her hand. "Our mating ceremony was one promise, but love isn't proved in a single day." He kissed the back of her hand. "So I will make you another promise. I will choose you tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day the moon goddess grants me." Iris smiled as tears filled her eyes. She leaned her head against his shoulder. She no longer wondered whether she was truly wanted, because the man beside her had made one thing beautifully clear: Choosing her would never be a moment in history. It would be the decision he made every single day. 5 years passed. The peace between the Lycan kingdom and the werewolf packs grew stronger with each changing season. The old border forts had become marketplaces. Training grounds once filled with warriors now welcomed scholars, healers, and craftsmen from every land. Children born after the Great Moon Bond knew the stories of war only through their history lessons. To them, Lycans and werewolves were simply neighbors. At the heart of that transformation stood Queen Iris. Yet she refused to spend her days hidden behind palace walls. Every month, she left the capital with only a small escort. She visited the villages that had once been forgotten. She listened before she spoke. She sat in humble kitchens instead of grand halls. She asked farmers about their harvests. She read stories to children in newly built schools. She thanked healers working through the night. Many villagers recognized her immediately. Others did not. They simply saw a kind woman who treated every person with equal respect. One afternoon, Iris visited a school built where an abandoned military camp had once stood. The classroom buzzed with laughter as young wolves practiced reading together. A little girl raised her hand. "Your Majesty?" Iris smiled. "Yes?" The child hesitated before asking, "Is it true another alpha didn't want you?" The room became very quiet. Even the teacher looked uncomfortable. Iris walked over and knelt beside the girl's desk. "It is true." The child frowned. "Didn't that make you feel like you weren't good enough?" Iris reached out and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind the girl's ear. "For a little while, it did. But then I learned something important." "What was it?" the girl whispered. She smiled warmly. "Never measure your worth by someone else's inability to see it." The children listened carefully. "The people who truly belong in your life," Iris continued, "will never make you earn the right to be treated with kindness." The teacher quietly wiped away a tear. Those words spread far beyond that classroom. Parents repeated them at home. Young women carried them into adulthood. Young men learned that love was not possession, but respect freely given. Across the kingdoms, Iris became known by a new name. Not the last heir, not the first moon queen, not even her majesty. The people simply called her the queen who was chosen. Not because destiny demanded it, but because one man had looked beyond bloodlines, titles, and politics, and chosen her for the strength of her heart. That evening, Kaylor found Iris sitting beneath the palace garden's oldest silver tree. "You've been quiet today," he said. She looked up at him with a peaceful smile. "I was thinking." "About what?" "The day Tristan rejected me." Kaylor sat beside her, but said nothing. She watched the moon rise above the city. "I used to believe that was the worst day of my life." She slipped her hand into his. "Now I know it was the day my real life began." Kaylor kissed her forehead gently. Neither of them spoke again. They did not need to. Sometimes happiness required no grand speeches, only two people sitting beneath the same moon, grateful that one painful ending had led them to the future they truly deserved. Many years passed. The kingdoms no longer spoke of peace, as though it were a fragile dream. It had become their way of life. The children who once played together in shared schools had grown into leaders, healers, and guardians. They had never known a world divided by fear. Each year, new alphas and Lycan commanders gathered at the royal hall to study the history of the Great Moon Bond. The final lesson was always the same. Leadership began with character, not power. The great gallery inside the hall displayed many relics from the age before the kingdoms united. Ancient crowns rested inside crystal cases. Ceremonial swords hung upon polished stone walls. Golden scepters glittered beneath the lantern light. Yet visitors always stopped before two simple objects. The first was a moonstone necklace. Its silver chain had faded with age. A small plaque beneath it read, "The necklace returned by Iris Everhart on the day she refused to beg to be chosen." Beside it rested a plain silver bracelet marked with the sacred crescent of the Lycan bond. Its inscription read, "The bond accepted by Queen Iris when she freely chose her equal." A young alpha studying the display turned to his instructor. "Why keep both?" The elderly teacher smiled. "Because together, they tell the whole story. The necklace reminds us what happens when loyalty is taken for granted. The bracelet reminds us what becomes possible when love is earned." The young alpha nodded thoughtfully. Nearby, another group gathered before a great marble wall. Carved into its center were the words every future ruler was required to memorize before taking office. They had been written by King Kalor himself. "The greatest mistake a ruler can make is believing loyalty is guaranteed." Beneath it appeared the second line. "The greatest privilege is earning it again each day." No ruler left the academy without reading those words aloud. Late that afternoon, an elderly Iris and Kalor entered the gallery quietly. Neither wore royal robes. They preferred simple traveling clothes. Most visitors did not recognize them immediately. They paused before the display holding the necklace and bracelet. Kalor smiled gently. "Strange. What is?" "That history remembers two small pieces of jewelry more than all the crowns." Iris laughed softly. "Perhaps because they represent choices." She looked at the moonstone necklace. "I once believed losing this meant losing my future." Then she turned to the silver bracelet on her wrist. "Instead, it led me to the life I was meant to live." Kalor reached for her hand, just as he had on the day of their moon bond. "I would still ask you." She smiled. "And I would still say yes." Outside, the evening bells echoed across the United Kingdoms. Children raced through the palace gardens. Werewolves and Lycans stood watch together upon the city walls. Merchants from every pack traded freely beneath banners that now flew side by side. The kingdoms remembered the day Alpha Tristan rejected the woman he believed would always wait for him. But that was never the story they chose to celebrate. History remembered something greater. The woman who refused to beg for love, the king who asked instead of demanded, and the promise that transformed two divided kingdoms forever. The greatest privilege was never finding someone who would stay no matter what. It was becoming the kind of person they would freely choose, every single day.